Every year, tens of thousands of people go missing around the world. The fate of these people remains unknown, so all of these disappearances can be called mysterious in their own way. But some of them are especially mysterious, strange, and even mystical. From the 5 children who disappeared at the same time in a house, to the girl who disappeared aboard a beautiful ship. This is Infinity, and in this episode I'll tell you about these and other of the most mysterious disappearances without a trace. Sodder children. On Christmas Eve 1945, a fire broke out in the Sodder family home. George and Jenny Sodder and their 9 children were caught unprepared by the fire. As Jenny ran out of her bedroom, she realized the house was literally on fire. Unable to get to the phone, she woke up her husband and her daughter, Marion, who was napping on the living room couch, asking her to carry little Sylvia outside. Jenny then began shouting to wake the children, whose bedroom was upstairs, but only the 2 older boys came down to her. No one else saw the other children. The 5 children seemed to have vanished into the fire and smoke. Of course, one might have assumed that they were victims of the fire, but no bodies were found. The parents refused to believe that their 5 children had died in the fire and suggested that the little ones might have been kidnapped by members of the Sicilian Mafia. As it turned out, there might have been a reason for that. One way or another, none of the children were ever found, although many years later, photos have been found in which many people have recognized some of the grown children. Could they really have been kidnapped and survived? Zeb Quinn. The disappearance of Zeb Quinn is considered one of the strangest and most mysterious in history, and for many reasons. In January of the year 2000, 18-year-old Zeb and his buddy Robert Owens went out to look for a new car. They were driving in 2 cars, but on the way, Quinn suddenly stopped. After informing Owens that he had received an urgent call and that the car inspection was canceled, Zeb turned around and drove back. He was never seen again. 2 days later, Quinn called in sick to work, but his boss was sure he heard Owens' voice, not Quinn's. The spot of the call was established. It came from Zeb's aunt's house. But here's the odd thing. The owners weren't home at the time, and none of them had sent Zeb's boss any messages. Even stranger was the set in Zeb's car, which was found 2 weeks after he went missing. The rear window had lipstick on it, and in the car there were a hotel room key, a jacket that didn't belong to Quinn, several liquor bottles, and a live puppy. Still unclear how this can be connected and, more importantly, what became of Zeb. Many believe that Owens may have killed Quinn and hidden the body, but no evidence or trace has ever been found. Carolina Sagers-Molansky and her daughter. On November 21, 1987, a store owner in South Carolina discovered that his subordinate, Carolina Sagers-Molansky, had not shown up for work. He was unable to contact the employee and went in search for her. Before he reached Carolina's house, he found her car. The locked car was parked near the plantation where the woman's spouse worked. The supervisor called the police and reported the man missing. Policemen found out that Carolina was last seen driving on the highway at about 11 p.m. The police could find no further information. But then another strange thing happened. On October 4, 1988, Carolina's daughter Annette went missing. At about 7 a.m., she was waiting for a school bus near the plantation where her mother had disappeared. When the driver arrived to pick up the schoolgirl, Annette was gone. The girl's stepfather didn't know his stepdaughter was missing until he realized she hadn't returned from school. Then he went to the bus stop where he found a note that said, "Dad, Mom's back, hug the boys." Forensics determined that the note was indeed written by Annette. To this day, that scrap of paper remains the only evidence in the disappearance case. As for Annette and Carolina, still not clear what became of them. Imagine this. There are 3 keepers on duty at the lighthouse. Suddenly, all of them inexplicably disappear. This is exactly what happened in 1900 on the island of Eilean Mor in Great Britain. The last entry in the diary was dated December 15th. The same day, the lights of the lighthouse went out. The small island was searched meter by meter, but no answer was found. The suspicious thing was that the table on the lighthouse was overturned, although everything else looked absolutely normal. It's still unclear where the keepers had disappeared to. Could it have been strong waves that washed the keepers into the sea? Rebecca Corium. Rebecca Corium disappeared in a job involving waves in the sea too. Only in her case, the job was a real paradise. Rebecca was an employee of the crew of the Disney Wonder, a Disney-sponsored cruise ship. The liner put to sea off the coast of Mexico in 2011. Rebecca was last seen on the morning of March 22nd. Around 6 a.m., security cameras recorded Rebecca talking on the phone in the lobby. The conversation seemed to be upsetting her, but when a colleague stopped and asked if everything was okay, she said, "I'm fine." No one else spoke to the girl. She soon disappeared without a trace. Investigators believe that Rebecca was washed away by the wave as she tried to swim in the cruise pool, but the evidence didn't support this version. The cruise pool was located in such a way that only a huge tsunami could wash away a person. And on the day of her disappearance, the sea was calm. Rebecca's parents claimed the company's hiding something. Maybe they're right, but how can it be comforting when no one has seen the girl for almost 11 years? Maura Murray. In February 2004, Maura Murray turned 21. After her birthday, she left the University of Massachusetts Amherst campus, saying she was going home. She told her professors that one of her relatives had died, and she told her friends nothing. They didn't know Maura had left. That evening, her car ran into a snowdrift in New Hampshire. A passing driver offered to help her, but she refused. No one else saw her. Police later found her car locked and empty. Inside the car, there were booze and a map of the road to Burlington, Vermont. The already bizarre story grew stranger as it turned out that none of Maura's relatives had died, and that she had emptied her bank account before disappearing. At the same time, Maura's acquaintances recalled that she'd been in an accident the week before she disappeared, and that someone had been calling her for several days in a row, with the calls clearly stressing her out. The mystery of Maura Murray's disappearance has not yet been solved. Not only the disappearances of people are mysterious, but also the disappearances of vehicles. For example, airplanes, ships, or trains with lots of people on them. I think you'll be interested to know about such stories too. Stay tuned to learn about the train that disappeared in the tunnel and to see the airplane which disappearance is considered the most mysterious in history. Train. Stories about disappearing of ships or airplanes are not uncommon in the media. But what about trains? They disappear too, but very rarely. The most mysterious disappearance of a train occurred on July 14, 1911. At that time, a 3-car train with 106 passengers departed from the Roman railway station on a tour to the Zenfedi firm. Passengers were supposed to enjoy the ride and enjoy the beautiful views along the new railroad. But this trip was their last. After entering a straight 1-kilometer-long tunnel that could be looked through, the train never appeared from the other side. A search began, but no trace of the missing train was ever found. But they found 2 passengers who managed to jump out of the vestibule. They were very frightened. According to them, as they entered the tunnel, a fog began to thicken behind the windows and in the train carriage themselves, which soon began to resemble a viscous liquid. When they saw this and heard the panic in the train carriages, they immediately jumped off. Although they managed to survive, they later suffered from sleep disorders and nightmares for a long time. The tunnel was thoroughly inspected again, but again, nothing was found. No one had ever been lost in the tunnel before or after this gruesome story. But the frightened authorities decided to close the tunnel out of harm's way. It's still unclear what happened to that train. Plane. The disappearance of the Boeing 707 over the Pacific Ocean in 1979 has been called one of the most mysterious cases in aviation history. There are some reasons for this. The plane went off the radar and disappeared just 30 minutes after taking off from Tokyo. A large-scale search operation was launched. Dozens of ships searched the Pacific Ocean thoroughly, but the 8-day search ended unsuccessfully. Not even an oil slick from jet fuel or any floating debris was found. The case is considered one of the strangest in aviation history. Cases of planes disappearing are not uncommon, but usually the wreckage is found, or the crew has time to warn of an emergency situation, or it's roughly clear where to look for the plane. None of these things were in that case. Maybe the plane went down in the ocean away from the intended area. Maybe it was hijacked. Or maybe it was shot down. Either way, the Boeing 707 has still not been found. And I'm sure it will never be found. That's all, guys. Where do you think missing people, trains, and planes go to? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.